Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So if you haven't figured it out yet, today we're gonna be deep frying a turkey. My goal is to show you how to do it safely and how to do it effectively so you got something awesome to enjoy for American Thanksgiving. So let's get into it. Okay, so a couple of things to look at in terms of the setup here. So just kind of giving you some details here. We've got our propane tank here, and this is our regulator. Our regulator here, this is how we're actually going to control the temperature of the turkey fryer, okay? Now on the fryer itself down here, we actually have a valve, or rather a timer. And what this timer does is it's set for 15 minutes. So in 15-minute intervals, it'll automatically kick itself off and turn the entire fryer off. Okay, so this can be very helpful, you know, again, just keeping us a little bit safer here in case we did forget about it. Now, in order to start the turkey fryer, we've got to be able to push this button down here and then ignite the burner inside using a barbecue lighter, okay? So these are some of the safety devices that we've got built into here. Now, something that is incredibly important, and I really hope the camera picks this up, you've got a line here where it says maximum fill line, okay? So the maximum fill line, we have got to make sure we respect that on this unit. Because another thing to keep in mind too here is that the weight of the bird is set at 18 pounds. If your turkey is heavier than 18 pounds, do not fry it, period. At least not using this particular model. This isn't a suggestion, we have to respect that full line, okay? That line is rated to be able to handle the complete volume of the bird and the oil while it's in there. So we always respect that full line, okay? Now again, on top here, I've got my thermometer, and my thermometer is gonna help me to figure out what oil temperature that we're gonna have to fry this at. We'll talk a little bit about oil temperature in a bit here, but again, just to kind of give us an understanding, that full line that I talked about, we can also see that from the inside of the pot here. Again, a little hard to pick it up on the camera, but I am right at that full line, okay? So again, these are just some of the things that we wanna be mindful of when we're going through the process here. Okay, so let's take a look at our bird here. So the bird we're gonna be doing here is actually not a turkey, it's a chicken, because we're Canadian and we did our Thanksgiving back in October. So I had an old freezer burned chicken, again, just for the purposes of the video, it would illustrate what we gotta do pretty well. So I got him strung up here, but there's a couple things that you really gotta keep in mind, and this is arguably one of the most important parts of deep frying the turkey here. You've gotta make sure this is dry, completely 100% dry, because any moisture that gets into that oil, you're gonna have a bad time, because that moisture can't escape when it's in the oil, and that is when you get these geysers of oil blasting out of the pot, and when that hits the open flame, that's how you get those big fireball explosions. So this fellow's got to be dry both inside and out, okay? So that's something very important that you really want to make sure that you take the time, pat that down with a paper towel, let it air dry, okay? So again, just to re-emphasize the fact that this guy has got to be completely dry. In terms of putting like a seasoning or a rub on it, again, because you're deep frying it, it's probably not going to work out the best for you. Some folks have had measures of success using a flavor injector and injecting something like, say, garlic butter in there. And if the needle's big enough on the injector, you might even be able to mix some spices or seasoning in there and then get that into the meat underneath. I find that's got a little bit of a better chance of success for you. But again, very important, you make sure this is completely dry before it goes in. So another really important thing that I want to talk about here that we got to be mindful of is your oil and your oil choices, okay? You cannot cheap out on your oil here, okay? Don't just get the cheapest stuff that's on sale. Ideally, you're going to want to be using peanut oil or corn oil. And the reason behind that is they've got the highest flash point. And what I'll do is I'll throw a chart up on the screen talking a little bit about what flash point is, but you basically have to understand what temperature will your oil start to smoke at. They call it a smoke point or a flash point. That's really important, because if you pick an oil, ideally when you're frying the bird, you want to have that oil probably around 375 to 400, but to make sure that you don't have the oil permeate into the bird, you actually want to try to get that temperature a little bit higher, because you got to think about it. When I take the lid off of this and I dunk this in, that oil's at 375, this is at 32, okay? So you're gonna see how much that temperature is gonna fall. Ideally, I wanna try to bring that up a little bit. I want to bring that temperature up a little bit, so when I put the bird in, it gets me right at that sweet spot, and then I can just go ahead and maintain that temperature from there on out, okay? So that's something we really want to be mindful of, just knowing what the temperature is and then trying to dial in our settings to make sure we hold that temperature for the rest of the time. Okay, so another very important thing you got to keep in mind here is it's almost time to put the bird in. Now, when we do this, what we should be doing is turning off the gas supply, okay? And what that's going to do is kill the flame. Now, don't worry about the temperature of the oil. That oil is very hot and it is going to actually hold the heat very, very well. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it so that if some of that oil did happen to bubble over the side and get onto the burner, at least that way it's not going to ignite, it's not going to catch fire, you're not going to get that giant fireball, okay? Very, very important to remember, when you lower that bird in, go slowly, very, very slowly, okay? Because if there is any moisture, it is going to give it that chance to escape, okay? Make sure you're wearing gloves, make sure you're wearing the proper equipment to lower this in, because you are dealing with really, really hot oil, okay? So let's go ahead and lower that bird in. All right. So there we go. I've got my hook. I know the bird is dry. Okay, here's showtime. Now, I wish I could give you guys a better look at this from my angle. There we go. Okay, and again, it's very important to make sure that we lower the bird in slowly, because when we do that, what that's doing is it's allowing that center cavity inside the bird to actually fill up, okay? And once that's full of oil, there we go. Now we got showtime. All right, so I'm gonna put that back in. I'm gonna get back on the gas supply, and I'm gonna set my timer here. So I know that with the weight of this bird here, it's 8 pounds, 3.5 minutes a pound. That puts me right at about the 30-ish minute mark, okay? I'll probably check it out around 28, 29 just to see where we're at. But that's really all there is to it, folks. Arguably the hardest part of putting the bird in the pot is done. We'll check back in a half an hour, and of course, we're not just gonna leave this unattended. We're just gonna be by to make sure everything is good. But yeah, we'll catch you back in a little bit. So let's think about this. With it being Thanksgiving, what am I thankful for? I'm thankful for the 171 subscribers who all decided to click that button and take the time to watch my videos. I really appreciate it, guys. I love being able to create content like this for you. So, hey, the more likes and subscribes you give me, the more stuff I'm gonna put out there for you. Now, another thing you can keep in mind as well, if the temperature probe, the thermometer that comes with this thing, over time, these are gonna get a little tougher to be able to actually see out of, right? What I like to do is I have a temperature gun, and I just like to verify what I see on the gauge versus what I see on the temperature gun. And hopefully these two should be really close to each other. Perfect, yep, that's awesome. Now, you might also be wondering, well, what about the oil? What do I do with this oil after? You're gonna have a few gallons of oil left over. Typically what I like to do is I'll go ahead and I'll get like a cheesecloth, and I have a 5-gallon pail that when I originally got the oil came with it. And what I'll do is I'll actually filter that oil back in, and I reuse the oil. This stuff's expensive. If you're only gonna do the turkey one time, you know, yeah, it's a cool novelty, but it's really not worth it. So again, what I do is I get that cheesecloth, I get a big enough funnel, you wait till this cools down, okay? It's probably gonna need a couple hours. Now, here we got some snow, we're below freezing already, so, you know, it maybe won't take as long, but when you start pouring that stuff back in, you can filter out a lot of those impurities and whatnot. And then, yeah, I typically try to reuse the oil. Something important though, if you smoke the oil, okay, meaning you got it too hot and instead of steam coming off, now you're getting like a burning smell, you basically scorch the oil, and that's going to impart a really bad taste on the meat. But also, again, it's just not going to be great to want to reuse that. So that's why it's really important to pay attention to, again, what the smoke point is for the oil that you're using. And again, you can continue to reuse that oil as long as it's in good shape. Once I've cleaned that oil out, I actually go ahead and I throw that entire pail in my freezer, and I freeze it so that the oil doesn't go rancid. Okay. Again, few different schools of thought on how you could go about doing that. But that's what I've done for a number of years already, and it's worked really well for me. I typically reuse the oil about maybe 6 to 8 times, and I found again that that's worked pretty well for me. So again, another helpful tip is when you're going through this process and you're deep frying the bird, always make sure that you've set that timer based on the weight. Okay, again, The magic number in terms of the weight here is between 3 and 4 minutes a pound. I'd like to split the difference and call it 3.5, okay? So yeah, again, set that timer for yourself depending on the weight of the bird. Means you're gonna have to do a little bit of math, but ultimately that's how you know you're gonna get the best result here. So we are almost done here, okay? So I'll be excited to show you guys the finished product after. Okay, folks, so I'm just checking in on my time. I'm down to about 60 seconds left, okay? So at this point, what I'm gonna do is, again, I'm just taking a look at the bird. I can tell we're pretty much in the end game right now. So again, I'm gonna have a fresh roaster ready to go here, okay? And ideally what you're gonna wanna do is when you pull the bird out, now remember, gas supply off, flame off. Give it 10, 20, 30 seconds, okay? When you pull this bird out of here, same thing, nice and slow, you're letting the oil drain from all those cavities, okay? Once we've done that, you're gonna get them in a roaster or a tinfoil tray, something to that effect. You wanna keep it covered, because remember, even though you pulled the bird out, it is still cooking just a little bit, okay? So you wanna keep it wrapped probably for another 5 to 10 minutes. From that point, carve it up and get ready to enjoy arguably one of the juiciest, most tastiest turkeys you've ever had in your life, okay? So folks, as always, you know the drill. If you like the video, again, please consider giving me a like, giving me a subscribe. It makes a huge difference for the channel. Again, to my Canadian friends, happy Thursday. To my American friends, happy Thanksgiving, guys. I hope you have an awesome one. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.